Are there any moments or stories within your True North experience that since that first camp that really just get you fired up for the mission of True North?
Personal stories.
Yeah.
Um, well, it'd be hard for me not to talk about um, the story of how we have such a large family,
Yeah.
right? Because if I go back to the idea, invited into a small group, and I remember vividly one day that we were talking about hearing from God, and I was a bit confused in the moment, right? Because somebody was talking about this idea that God told them to pull over and help this guy, and I'm like, I don't know the difference between me feeling guilty to just pull over and help him out, or God telling me to.
Hmm.
And so everybody in the room kind of gave their own version of what it is like for them to hear from God versus hearing from yourself. But somebody else decided, you know what? You need to read this book. He, Brad Montgomery,
Yeah.
he decided to go on Amazon, buy Walking with God, and leaned over and asked me for my address. He sent it to me. He goes, "Here's the deal. You're going to read this book. Then we're going to go have a beer. We're going to talk about it, and then we're going to read it again.
Yeah.
Like that's what's going to happen."
Hmm.
And he said, "This book changed my life." It's like, oh, okay.
Yeah.
That stirred up something in me where it was normal to have a conversation with God, to learn His voice in little things.
Hmm.
So take that and fast forward a couple years later. Um, Things had gotten pretty busy, and I start having a dream that we were at the hospital, specifically Mercy Hospital in Oklahoma City. We were getting off the elevator. The nurse was pushing Abby in the wheelchair. She had a baby basically sitting in her lap, and I'm carrying the balloons out to the car. This car, interestingly, is my mom's 1976 brown Monte Carlos, big old long boat of a car,
Yeah.
very wide. And in the back seat, I go to put the baby in kind of the car seat and put him in, and he's got a blue bonnet on. Like, so you got a blue little bonnet on his head, and I look across this big long back seat, and on the other side of the back seat is a blonde-haired, blue-eyed toddler just laughing. And and I wake up. Well, this happened to me. This exact dream happened to me 5 nights in a row.
Oh my.
And I remember on a Saturday morning telling my wife, I was like, okay, this is weird, but I've got to tell you a story. And so I tell her this, and she's brushing her teeth, and I was like, okay. She says, "So when did that start?" I said, "Monday. Monday night through Friday night. It's 5 nights in a row. It's the exact same dream." And she looks at me, she goes, "Huh, me too." Walks out. Walks out, and I'm left there going, well, so what came out of my mouth was, well, I guess I need to pray about this. What was going on in my heart was completely different. I did not want to do this. We had 4 girls,
Yeah.
and I was not
That's a
interested.
full load,
We're
man.
we have plenty. I mean, we're homeschooling at this time. Some of our family thinks we're weird because we've already got, we've got 4 kids. We're homeschooling. We're kind of weird, but it's what God was calling us into. Um, this set off a season of me. I argued with God for 6 months. And I mean, literally, I would be in my truck going down the road, and I'd be yelling and screaming, and I would hear but practicing hearing from God and recognizing His voice was very critical earlier, because now I recognized the calm, soothing voice where, like, I would just say, "I don't want this," and He goes, "Yeah, I know, but you obey." And that wasn't a statement of what I'm going to do; it's a statement of identity.
Hmm.
When he said that, and I would get furious. Um, and 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 I never got a furious tone back from God. It was so interesting, right?
Yeah.
But over the season of about 6 months, I mean, there are so many wild stories embedded in that. But arguing with God for that period of time was the closest, up to that point, was the closest and most intimate time I'd ever had with God.
Yeah.
And we weren't on the same page,
Yeah.
but He just kept pursuing. He just kept pursuing. He just kept encouraging. And finally, I remember in January, because this had happened in July to January. In January, I remember saying, "Fine, you win." And that was my prayer.
Yeah.
Like, doesn't sound like much of a prayer, but that's exactly what I prayed. It's like, fine, you win.
Yeah.
We were pregnant by the end of the month.
Yeah.
And 3 months later, we had a miscarriage. That miscarriage rocked us
Yeah.
because we felt like we were walking into what God had called us to,
Yeah.
right? And like the idea, at least in my mind at that point, the idea that if you're walking in what God has called you to do,
Should just
He's going to
happen.
take care of it,
Yeah.
right? There's not going to be pain. There's not going to be like, this is going to work out because God has called us to go do this.
Yeah.
Um, we had that miscarriage, and I remember on the back porch, Abby and I were talking about it, we were crying about it, we were praying about it, and I remember vividly hearing, "This is not an Abraham and Isaac test. I want you to do this, but I want you to invite other people in. Tell the story and invite people in." Because up to that point, when we kind of felt weird. I mentioned that before, we're homeschooling, we've got 4 kids. Like the idea that you're going to go have more kids because God said so in a dream, to many of our family and some of our friends, that was weird.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say necessarily embarrassing, but I didn't know how to handle all the questions. And so I was just like, yeah, it's easier just not to talk about it. And God was like, nope, we're going to invite some people in. We're going to talk about it. And you need people praying for you.
Yeah.
And I didn't like the idea of, again, depending on other people, even for prayer. I thought they don't have time for that. They
Yeah.
don't, that's not important to them. It's important to me, but it's not important to them. And that kind of puts them out. And I don't like somebody, um, I don't like putting anybody out.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I don't enjoy. Um, but we did. So we started sharing the story, and telling our family about it, telling people what was going on. My dad was super excited. So this was, he at that time he had 6 granddaughters, no grandsons, and he and we grew up hunting and fishing. So he was like, okay, he's getting his little hunting buddy, his little fishing buddy. Everybody in my little small town that I grew up in knew that Gary was having a son, and we'd already told him that we're naming him Garrett. So Garrett was named after my dad,
Okay.
and my grandpa. So it's Garrett Victor. But everybody in town knew this. Fast forward, we're 8 to 9 months into this pregnancy. My dad passes away very unexpectedly and just crushing. We had 4 or 5 years of like, our relationship was fantastic. It wasn't always, but it was fantastic in that period. And trying to kind of walk with God in that, it was necessary that I had learned the voice of God, His consolation,
Mm-hmm.
His love earlier, to be able to hear Him in that.
Yeah.
So that was the hardest season I'd ever been through. Garrett was born, a few weeks later, perfectly fine, like no issues. It was
Yeah.
beautiful. Like it was awesome, but like Dad wasn't there. Right. Back to the men's group. They wouldn't let me not talk about it. Right. They forced me to process
And grieve.
and grieving, right? As we've learned, the simplest explanation of grief that I've kind of held on to is getting what's on the inside out.
Yeah.
And they did that really, really well, but they knew me, right? We had been together for a season.
Yeah.
And, I needed them, but I didn't know how much. Several of them showed up for the funeral, drove 2.5 hours to get up to the funeral, which was, kind of mind blowing.
Yeah.
But, that was the easy thing.
Yeah.
The hard thing was every week showing back up at group, knowing that they're going to continue to ask me hard questions and wait on me through the tears to answer and to talk through it. So I don't know exactly what your question was to begin with, but that story of kind of blending together, like being able to hear the voice of God, certainly put us on a path to grow in our family. And we had no doubt that that's what we were supposed to do.
Yeah.
Being able to rely on our small group, my men's group, in the hardest season I'd ever been through,
Yeah.
was maybe the second biggest thing
Mhm.
that I've ever gotten out of True North.
Yeah.
It's the relationships and the intimacy with men,
Yeah.
because you may not need them right now. You're going to need them. You're going to go through something where you
Yeah.
need good, strong men around you.
Yeah.
Um, and you need to be able to have God, but you also need to have men close by that's ready to fight
Yeah.
with you, or maybe just kick your tail,
Yeah.
right? I mean, I've been on both sides of that coin, but
Yeah.
going in that season of going back to group every week was like, I dreaded it. So I didn't want to do it, but God was sitting there encouraging me, like, nope, we can do this. Like,
Mhm.
and it was always this we.
Mhm.
I'm with you. We can do this.
Mhm.
So I'd go back and I'd get my 2-hour counseling session from a
Yeah.
bunch of guys who are kicking my tail and helping me figure out what it was like to grieve. I'd never been through anything like that.
Mhm.
And you can tell somebody, just get what's on the inside out, right? It'll be so much better. But you got to walk it. You just have to
Mhm.
walk that out.
Mhm.
So that's hard.
That's good. Thank you for sharing that. That's a really beautiful story.
Yeah. Here's the rest of that. We have 2 boys,
Okay.
not just one,
Yeah.
right? And so about a year and a half later, this had never happened to us. Every time that we have had children, it was something that we were planning,
Mhm.
right? We're planners. There's rules. We follow the rules. We plan things. So Luke, our youngest, he was not planned. And so when Abby came to me and said, "Hey, we need to talk," well, first of all, I don't like you saying that. Like, what does that mean? That brings up so many negative connotations.
Yeah.
Like, what's about to happen? And she said, I'm pregnant." Well, my reaction wasn't godly, um, but it was. I think within a few days, I'm like, you know what? I think God just didn't want to argue with me again. I joke, right? It's like he's just going to do what he needs to do here.
Like
Like,
a good dad.
but that was actually the fulfillment of the dreams that we were
Yeah.
having, right? It really wasn't about one boy, it was about two. And there in that time, I don't know, I would have been so reluctant to have another one. I think the idea that like, nope, she's pregnant, like, oh,
Mm.
son of a gun. Every time we had an extra kid, though, it was like as a new vehicle, we had to add on to our house. Like, I'm a finance guy. Like everything, the numbers just kept adding up. I'm like, this
Mhm.
doesn't make sense. Why would I do this?
Yeah.
Try to take logic and tell God what to do with that. And like, no,
Yeah.
I've got another plan.
Yeah. It's interesting because uh, I'm just seeing a theme of you're the third person on the True North podcast who have brought up reading Walking with God being such a transformational
Mm,
thing.
right.
Jess, my wife, she was on the podcast and shared how she had to pull over on the side of the road because God just hit her so hard with that book.
Sure.
Same thing with Ryan.
Hmm.
Ryan shared about that, and now you're sharing that. And so, man, read this book. Read this book.
Yeah.
It's a phenomenal book. It is what the Ascent is based on.
Hmm.
And I know you've been a part of the Ascent team for a long time.
Right.
And you've led camps. You've been a part of the
Hmm.
prayer team for the Ascent. What I mean, is there anything outside of what you've already shared that like fires you up about the Ascent?
It's the practicing of it, right?
Yeah.
You get to, not to give away all the secrets, right? But when you get time with other men to hear their story, and then are able to just simply sit back and listen to God, and then watch what he's up to when one person hears one thing and somebody else hears something else, and
Yeah.
it blends together
Yeah.
beautifully, right?
Yeah.
Like God speaks to us differently, and how he does that and how he blends it together, it's I'm in awe,
Hmm.
right? Because there's a lot of times I'll hear a lot of things for somebody if I'm leading that small group, and we'll pray. And I had this happen to me on the other side too. Trey Dixon was a small group leader for me the very first time I went to the Ascent,
Hmm.
and he heard something very specific for somebody, and he told me later. He didn't tell me at the moment. He said, "God, give that to somebody else." And he said, within 3 seconds, you said the exact same thing that I had just heard.
Mm.
And I've done that same thing
Yeah.
in those small groups as well. I don't know. There's just a ton of stories that you could
Yeah.
tell out of that. But it is a rich time of practicing.
Mhm.
Um, I don't know if you want to call it a skill, but it's a new practice for a lot of us.
Yeah.
And to hone that skill with other men around you,
Yep.
it's a beautiful time.